So first of all, a little bit of housekeeping, and most of all, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and a big welcome to all of you. We would love to know whereabouts you are joining from. So if you don't mind, dropping a message with your name in the chat box, and telling us where you are joining us from, and also how you heard about the webinar. We are really curious to see how you heard about this. Perhaps was it on LinkedIn, or it was shared by someone, or you heard about it from other source. We would love to know how you heard about this, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. We will be recording this webinar. Gabriella is going to do it on her end. So I just wanted you to know that there is going to be a recording to this, and we will then distribute it to those of you who couldn't make it in the end, in order to help them as well. And also there will be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions from us. But if you don't, and please do type those questions that may arise while we are speaking in the chat box, to make sure you don't forget it. And then once we get to the end of it, to the Q&A, then we will see if we can address all of them, or at least some of them, or the most important ones. Okay, so shall we then go ahead? Perfect. Okay.
I'll just remove the chat, because then it's just going to come up. Okay.
Yeah, of course. So I think I'm going to start with a quick introduction, if you don't mind, because I'm going to then hand it over to Gabriella Kovács to start talking about language coaching, a more holistic approach to language teaching. I'm Gabriella Ferenczi, and I'm a German and Hungarian language teacher, language trainer. I do use elements of the coaching approach in my teaching practice. I'm based in London, UK, and I've lived here for almost 12 years now. And I established a language training company called ProLingua Global, and I work predominantly with finance executives here. And I'm going to be talking about the business side of the story, and how you can market yourself more effectively as a language professional. And I'm just going to talk about a couple of things that worked for me personally in my language teaching business. Gabriella Kovács, thank you so much for organizing it and initiating this whole webinar. I hope the audience will find it useful and relevant and interesting. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much for the very, very, very nice introduction and warm words. So as you probably guessed, my name is Gabriella Kovács, and I'm an internationally accredited language coach. And I say that I used to be a language teacher, but I think if somebody is a language teacher once, then they remain language teacher forever and ever. So I haven't completely lost that part of myself, but I added different layers to it: mentoring and teacher training, which is a huge big passion for me. And I've been training teachers to understand the basics and the various depths of language coaching in the past few years, and it's something that I can never tire of, so I'm really excited about that. I'm based in Budapest in Hungary, and I travel to give workshops all over Europe, basically, and that's always something that we all enjoy, so the participants and me also. I'm also into a new pet project of mine, which is called International Language Coaching Association, and it's actually the first time I have mentioned it to the public, so it's a really, really new project and really exciting, and hopefully it can support quite a lot of language professionals in the future. So basically that's it. Okay, so I think we can move on, yeah, and just go on with the next slide, basically. Okay, so what it's doing is, I just want this. Okay, this is where I want to be. So I just gathered together a few things that we will be talking about today we'll be looking at both the professional and the business side of language coaching. I myself will be looking at the professional, and Gabi at the business considerations, the business aspects of coaching, language coaching, and we'll be looking at what kind of context language coaching can work in best, and also what kind of benefits it has. I guess that was the key word that got one of you excited. So what kind of benefits language coaching has for you as a language professional, and what it takes to have a coaching mindset, okay? And I'll be asking everyone to turn off their video if possible. Yes, okay. And we'll be looking at what kind of feedback clients have about language coaching, and I'll be presenting a case study. I think Bobby, you will be perhaps looking at a case study, and then we'll be looking at what kind of steps there are for development for all of you. Okay. My first question is something that I would say is at the basis of my work, which is what we call language coaching.
Yeah.
The definitions that we have. Somebody.
Good.
Hello. Okay, Loretta, can you turn down the mic, please? Okay. And what we have is, if nothing else, then just turn it upwards, okay, and that will be fine. So what language coaching is, and what I have done is I've revisited this a number of times in the past few years. I've reviewed it and I've revised it a lot, and this is what I came up with. Okay, can I ask you to turn on the mic? And I came up with a definition, which I'm going to try and just read very briefly. This is much better. Okay, we're going to see ourselves down there. So language coaching is a conversation-based process with a purpose to map and create optimal language acquisition or language usage-related goals. The framework is based on strategies that utilize the intrinsic motivation and develop learning awareness. And both parties, so both the coach and the client, are equal partners. It's also important that the clients claim ownership of their own development. Now, why is this an important definition? I would say it's important because... Yeah, okay, fine. So this is important because there are 3 or 4 keywords which might be new to you if you are not familiar with coaching. Which is that actually it's a conversation-based process. What happens is that you start talking about coaching as if it were some kind of, magic process. And it's not, it's a discussion, it's a conversation between 2 people, or a coach and a group of people. And there's going to be a framework which is really a definitive part of how you build up the conversation, the whole process goes. You're going to be looking at strategies, you'll be looking at motivation, intrinsic motivation, which is very important. And for me, one of the key elements of coaching, language coaching, is to create a very deep, a very, very stable learner awareness about the learning itself, how they learn, what kind of learning. Okay, maybe there is a microphone issue still. We'll see. And there's also going to be emphasis on the fact that they are equal partners. So there's no hierarchy between coach and coachee, or coach and the learner that they're working with. The responsibility for the learning is entirely upon the learner, which might also be a new element for some. Okay, moving on, I'm going to be talking about why language coaching. I mean, most of you have a background in teaching, training. Some of you may have a background in coaching, I presume. What can language coaching add? What I would say is that it's important to see what the similarities are and what the differences are, And because we are very limited for time, because I really value that everyone's sitting here, most of you in the evening or in the morning, I'm not quite sure where you're from. And I would emphasize 4 areas which I've done a lot of thinking about. And the 4 areas are what kind of process awareness each of these have, and also what kind of contact and rapport they work with, how they approach the content that they work with, and the final one is what their connection is to the goals that they have in the processes. And I don't know how we're doing for time, Gabi. I don't know whether I should go very much into this, but what I'd say for process awareness is that being aware of the framework of the learning process, whether it's in teaching, training, or coaching, is crucial. And it varies in each of these processes. Also, how much of learning support there is in each of them is going to vary significantly. Concerning the rapport and the communication that they have, you have a very strong emphasis on feedback, and how you communicate with the learner in coaching is critical. And it's not just about being able to ask the right questions. It's about your whole approach to looking at the other person as a human being. And that is just going to make such a big impact on the communication that you have. Also, what is important is how much control you have over your communication, how much attention you're paying to that or not. Concerning content, which is the third aspect that I talk about, it's important to know or to understand whether as a teacher you are focusing on knowledge transfer. In training, usually it's skills development, and in coaching, it's much more about awareness raising and understanding how you're going to achieve your goals. And it's not always about knowledge transfer as such. So that's going to be a huge big difference between teaching and coaching, for example. Who makes the decisions about the syllabus or the curriculum, and who decides what materials to use, what choices you have as a teacher or a trainer for what you're going to be using is usually an external thing. And in coaching, that's not the case. So in coaching, it's always based on partnership and dialogue. So it doesn't happen that in a coaching process, you tell the coachee or you tell the learner what you're going to be learning from. That simply cannot happen. Okay, so very, very briefly, that's all I would say here. Moving on, looking into the coaching and the learning environment. The question is here that you can see this. I'll just be moving you along as we go around here. Okay, what we can see here is a 10-step ladder. It's not mine. It's from teachthought.com, which I really, really love, and it's no advert. It's just just a wonderful resource for teachers, and I think for trainers and coaches also. And it's got this very good scale. It's this 10-step ladder, which says that these different aspects are very important characteristics in the learning environment, which is very effective. And I would say that the first 2 are just so important in coaching. So the fact that students ask more questions than the teachers, I think that's just so important. Because that means that they are engaged, they are focused, they are interested, they really want to know more. And they dare. So they're in an environment where it's okay to ask questions, because it doesn't mean that they are dumb and stupid. It means that they are interested, motivated, etc. And the questions are valued over answers. So it really is okay to ask. The rest are also very important, obviously, but I think maybe what I would emphasize here is number Number 5, which is, yeah, that classroom learning empties into a connected community. The way I understand this, it means that all the learning is something which works with co-sharing. So the classroom, the students, the learners are all connected, and they can trust each other, they can work together, and the learning is based on collaboration and co-creating new things. And I think that's also a very critical aspect of coaching. And my question is this happening in your classes? I presume it is, maybe not at a coaching level specifically, but in various degrees it definitely would be. I'm going to be moving you back here, okay? And moving on, I'll just check. Okay. What is important, I think, is that language and communication in coaching can build a bridge. What kind of bridge do I mean? I think that the attention that language coaching is receiving internationally and also locally, I can speak for myself, Hungary, but Gabi, I think you can speak about the UK, that the awareness about language coaching is definitely there, right? So it's something which you can't really, just brush under the, doorstep or just out the window or whatever. There's a lot of talk in ITEFL, on Facebook groups. There are different articles now, books on language coaching, and I think that there are a lot of independent language coaches all over the world who are getting more and more interested in finding like-minded professionals and wanting to talk about language coaching. And it might be difficult because we don't know of each other. So this is one of the reasons why we thought we would put this kind of event together and get thinking together. Trends that we should be aware of is, where are we? Yeah, here we are. One thing is that personalization is not just a buzzword, it's something which I truly believe and language coaching can support, because coaching itself is a very personalized process. So that's something that the coaching process can connect to, absolutely. And it's a trend where a lot of learning tools are failing in because they're just so general and universal. Another trend which is very important is that the corporate learning theory says that bite-sized learning is critical. It's not about, having 120 hours and just, pushing and having lots and lots of trainings and lots of work for years and years. But maybe it's just about having fewer, very, very personalized and very, very concise, specific bites of learning, and coaching can support that also. Okay. What's next? What do we have here? Okay. So the question is how coaching can transform a lesson. These are things that I've been working with teachers in the past few years, and I kind of distilled the reactions, the feedback that I got from them. And these 5 or 6 are the ones that really stood out, that were really important for them, as they've been practicing teachers, and we worked on what language coaching is about. We did demos and practiced it, and this is what we
go my side here.
Yes. Okay, so what we have is
go out that way. Yeah, I can go around. It's simply,
Okay, can I ask you to turn off the mic, please? Okay, so to create a learner-led, not learner-centered process, to hold the time and space.
No. Oh, I don't know, darling.
We've still got someone on the mic, please.
Want to have a look?
Hello.
Do you want to just go back and have a look? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting.
I think Carol just joined us. Carol.
Okay, could you just turn off the mic, please? Yeah.
Welcome. Would you mind turning off the mic? Thank you so much.
So it's it's a learner-led and not a learner-centered process. And I think there's a huge big difference between that. Also, being able to hold the time and space for learners so that they think for themselves, so that we're not so much, spoon feeding every single bit or chunk of information that we want them to learn, but letting them think for themselves. I think that really is one of the most key aspects of coaching. Staying curious, positive and direct as a coach, but also for the learners, I think it's really important for them to learn that they can stay curious, they can ask the questions. You can challenge learner issues, so it's not just a very directive, I tell you what to do and then I'm going to solve your problems or issues, whatever you have, but working on it together in collaboration, in partnership. Another thing which is important is asking instead of interpreting and suggesting. So if you just do one thing differently from now on, after you've heard this webinar, and that is instead of telling someone to do something, asking them if they would like to do something, I think that will already impact on the quality of your conversations with your learners. The other thing, of course, as I mentioned, is how you structure your conversations, not just talking randomly, but being able to structure them according to a coaching framework. Okay, what I have here is the 3 I's of language coaching, which is, I tried to make it kind of snappy and, easy to remember, basically. Can you increase the learner enthusiasm and engagement? First question. Second question is, are your learners committed and immersed enough? And what results are being achieved? What headway has been made? These are the questions that you need to really, if you want to develop professionally, really ask this and be honest with yourself and with your learners. And you can even ask them these questions, changing it a little bit, but asking them if they are happy with these things, and you can get some really interesting answers. What kind of benefits does language coaching have? Now, I know that these are things that we collected together with Gabi. I know I've been talking for a very long time, but I think what is really important is the third one, interestingly enough. It's enjoying collaboration at a deeper level. It's just so much more fruitful for the learners. And for you also, you're going to be seeing target language communication at a completely different level. And it doesn't matter whether it's a business student you have, a secondary school student. With children, coaching is not necessarily the best thing because they're not able to work at a metacognitive level, so they can't really think about how they learn because they don't have the mental capacities for that. It can be a university student preparing for an exam. It can be an adult who's got a workplace issue. So it doesn't really matter, very wide spectrum. You're going to see that your learning is much deeper and their learning is deeper and the communication will just increase. Gabi, anything you want to add here? I don't know.
One sec, let me just unmute myself, yeah? Well, yes, I'm going to add a lot actually once we get to my session, because yeah, on my side, how I see language coaching could benefited my business and how I structured my business and restructured it with the help of using the coaching approach and how it added a different quality to the services that I offer. Mm-hmm. That's what I will be talking about. So yeah.
Okay. Because what we see is that it does work. There are so many, success stories. I worked with teachers and I helped them with their career, and all we did was just 1 or 2 hours, and we worked through what is it that's their pain point at the moment. What is it that they would like to reach? And through a structured coaching conversation, they were able to kind of increase their awareness of where they are and where they are heading. And you can do exactly the same for your learners to basically clarify a number of issues that they haven't been aware of, because in the words of what many of my students, or learners, what they say is that, geez, nobody ever asked me that question. and just the shock of receiving a question face to face, and really giving them the time to think about it and just be quiet for a minute and let them have that question settle in their minds. That can be really, really, it's impactful. That's the word that I can say. I have a case study that I have here. A lady who I was working with in Budapest a few months ago, and this is the feedback I got from her after, I have to say, 22 hours. So we met basically 11 times. We had a relatively short program to go through. We went through specific goals, and this is the feedback that she gave, which kind of summarizes what the experience is for a language learner. Okay. So I'll just read it out. Maybe someone's not able to read it. Okay, so attending the courses has brought me many benefits, made me more confident, shown me that by practice I'm able to bring results. The coaching sessions were dynamic. You always came up with great learning ideas, which made me want to learn again after almost 20 years since I graduated from college. And you, Gabriella, through your methods, you have opened in me a new horizon. You taught me that I can, and guided me to the best result, which I think is just so beautifully put. And I didn't add anything, or I didn't change anything. This is what I received. And this opening a new horizon, I think that's very, very nicely put. And if you look at it, it's not about being better, learning new words or being, but I think it's about an increasing self-confidence. It's about being able to believe that you can do it, and that is what coaching can do, and that's the kind of quality which which is very difficult to kind of put into words, but that is what happens. Now I'll tell you very, very briefly, I'm going to be looking at my notes, sorry about this, of what can happen if we start, what we started with, what we worked on, and what the result was for this person. Is that okay? So she landed a big role in a multinational, and her plan was to work on banking terms, presentation panels, and be able to present to team members. We had an initial clarifying discussion, and we discovered that what she needed was a variety of functions. To be able to react fast on a daily basis, to be able to make decisions very quickly, be able to align to corporate goals, and to transfer information between groups and teams and levels, various ways. Be able to set tasks, to manage conflict, to analyze KPIs, to discuss and allow creative ideas to flow, how to go off track and come back to themes, how to acknowledge knowledge and learning in a team. So it's a completely different dimension than what we originally started with. What we came up with was that she said, I know I like to receive, but I don't pass on clear objectives, and I do not set clear tasks. I tend to deviate and drift from the original starting points, and I get lost in details. So this was the aspect that we came up with, and it turned out that this was something that was very easily spotted in her presentations, actually. And we worked on her note-taking, because what she was doing was what I'm doing was, okay, I would now like to talk about slide 4 and 5. And yes, I'm looking at my notes, and yeah, and she got completely lost, and then she was flustered, and she couldn't remember where she was, and she got completely mixed up. What she said, what the results were, was she learned how to summarize, how to take notes, so basically how to organize all the information that she needed to work with, and how to focus on specific issues that she needed to talk about, she needed to communicate with the teams. She was given more responsibility on a daily level from her superior. That was the very immediate result that she received. It was basically very positive feedback from her boss. So this is one example of how language coaching can help at a much deeper level to somebody who basically just wanted presentation panels. But we worked on her presentation, but at a different level. I don't know whether it's clear or not. Moving on, I know we're pressed for time. This is feedback from somebody who attended a language coaching course of mine, a teacher. Once again, I'll just read it very briefly and then we'll move on. I had a great time. I would never have thought that working online can be so straightforward and direct. I got what I had joined for, specifics to add to my prior knowledge about language coaching, and as we received concrete tools to use, I'm sure I will start using them in class. I've always thought that language teaching is successful if we teach not only the language, but support the learner in the learning process. What we are taking away from this course helps me with this, definitely. The approach is useful in any environment, many tools for a school setting too. The online cooperation was great. We could really discuss things as if it were face-to-face. So learning about language coaching is definitely not a horror story. It's something which can definitely provide you with a lot of hands-on experience, a lot of tools that you can take away and just start applying from the next day. Gabi, you know, we've worked together in a course, and you know what that is like. So it's always a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Questions that you need to be answering, and you're going to be getting this in the PDF that we will be sending. I'll just be putting people here. Okay. So a few questions that you need to be able to answer if you're approaching a client. I'll just read one or two, okay? So what's the initial focus we can start working on? And it's always initial, because you never know where the process is going to lead you, just like with me and that, the case study I presented. How will my client and I know our time together is proving useful? How can you measure that? You can't measure that in percentages. You can't measure that with points. You can't measure that with, okay, we covered 4 units. Does that mean that the time that we spend together is useful? I doubt it. What realistic outcomes are possible? Should we draw up a written contract? What should we put in that contract? Lots more questions, but I think we'd be moving on. Something that I thought you could take away and start thinking about immediately is a development ladder I put together specifically for today. And 4 questions for you to think about to see where you can start developing. What are your talents? So what are the things that you specifically think you can give to other people? What hurdles do you have in front of you? What are the challenges that you need to overcome? What is it that you want to say to the world, to your customers, your learners, your students, to the teachers that you're working with, and where are you progressing? What do you have in mind to get to? So a bit of food for thought there, and yeah, we've reached Gabi's. Okay, so, all right. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to Gabi, and I'll just quietly smile here a little bit.
Thank you, Gabriella. Please mute yourself as well.
Yeah, okay, I'll mute myself. I'll mute myself.
I was kind of managing in the background, everyone. Sorry for bothering you, but I think for now we are all good, and the audio seems to be working well and everything is fine. So what I would like to share with you really, really briefly, so the business side of the whole story of being a language coach, working as a language coach, and how you can market yourself. And by no means do I want to position myself or you know, come across as an expert in the field. I'm just someone who goes out there and who does the job. And I would like to share what works for me and my perspective of the whole story. And I'm open-minded. I would love to see how you feel about the whole story that I'm going to share with you. So if you allow me, I'm based in London, I'm based in the UK. So I would like to share with you what I see from here about the coaching industry in the UK and London, and then more specifically about the language coaching industry, and just generally the corporate scene here in London. So I did a simple search the other day on LinkedIn, and I just searched for the term coach, just to see how many coaches would come up in the UK. And to my surprise, there were 346,000 people who would consider themselves as coaches on LinkedIn. Now, out of these, there are 62,000 who are based in London, according to their LinkedIn profile. And then what you will see here in the coaching scene is a never-ending list of all sorts of coaching professions, including business coaches, life coaches, relationship coaches, self-esteem coaches. There is a mindset coach, the accent coach, the high performance coach. It's really a never-ending list. It's a very fascinating industry, and I think it's the second fastest growing industry in the world, as far as I remember. I saw a report somewhere. But then more specifically, if you can move on to the next slide, Gabriella, it's the language coaching scene here in the UK. So out of 360 something thousand people who consider themselves to be coaches in the UK, we have 100,000 who are language coaches, according to their LinkedIn profile, which is almost a third. And out of them, 16,000 are based in London, so about 16%, we could say. So if you agree with me, I think it's fair to say that there is huge interest in the concept, or at least I think we are starting to realize that we need some additional methods and tools to make our teaching processes more effective, more useful, both on the client side and on our end as teachers as well. Now, a couple of things from what I see about the teaching and the training industry as such in the UK. I've worked here for over 11 years, almost 12 years now. And ever since the beginning, I've been working here as freelance, as an independent German and Hungarian language teacher, language trainer. And what I see is that there are lots of different agencies, lots of different language schools, also independent teachers who either advertise themselves online or they don't, they just go word of mouth. And if you agree with me, based on these numbers that we can also see here on LinkedIn, I think it's fair to say that the market seems to be quite saturated. And that also means that it's increasingly difficult to stand out as a language teacher or training provider. That also entails a fierce price competition, at least from what I see. I've seen prices ranging from 15, 17 pounds per hour for language lessons up to 70, 80 and 100 pounds an hour plus minus VAT in the upper regions. And also in terms of the business training scene, well, let me know what you think, but in my view, it all seems to be quite generic. Like everyone seems to be offering the same services. Schools, agencies, teachers, it doesn't matter. Like, I will prepare you for this interview. I will help you to prepare for your next business trip or the presentation or the negotiation or whatever. It all seems to be the same story. And in my view, the landscape is quite bland. And I would love to see some different bits here. And the uniqueness really comes down to the teacher who is on the spot, on site, and does the job. You know, how they approach the whole story. It really comes down to us. One last thing about the corporate language training and how I see it, and it's the next slide, Gabriella. In my experience, but again, please comment. I can't see the chat box now, but I would love to follow up later on with how you see it, not only the UK, but generally. Like I can see people are joining us from Greece, from Russia, from Argentina. So please let us know how you feel about these things. So corporate language training, from my perspective here in the UK, we have the big corporation. They need language training services, so they engage a school or an agency. The agency sends out the teacher to do an all-round level assessment. Then students are assigned to groups, smaller or larger ones, and the course starts. And eventually, either disinterest starts to sneak in, or just simply the attendance rate drops because no one can be there all the time when it's at a set time on a set date. And just ultimately success rate plummets. And the bottom line is that money and time gets wasted. And I don't want to go into this group tuition versus one-on-one story. I guess we are all language teachers, so we know what it's all about. But certainly that made me question, because at the beginning I was doing a lot of group courses as well through different agencies. And then it made me question, really, what can we do to make this process a bit more effective? Because it's really not working as effectively as it could or as it should be. And so as a German and Hungarian language teacher and trainer, I worked with over 100 clients over the past 11, 12 years. And most of them are working in the financial services industry. And I realized that these extremely busy, very hardworking, time poor individuals who are stressed out, sometimes with rather strong personalities, and a bit of cockiness at times in the financial services industry. You can imagine it's a very male-dominated arena. They just needed a different approach to, the usual language teaching. And I've always been really interested in psychology, the science of learning and teaching, and just personal development as such, more recently business development. And I read a lot of books and listened to podcasts and shows and audiobooks and attended training events. And I was so inspired by all these that I wanted to try and experiment a couple of tricks that I learned from all these walks of life. And I tried this technique, I tried another method, I tried another tool. And what I found is that I developed a very loyal customer base that have been with me, I'm not joking, like over 10 years. And I think it's fantastic. And please do share these success stories if you have got such as well, because I'm really proud of these bunch of guys that I can honestly rely on financially, because they give me my bread and butter. And I enjoy working with them immensely, and they love working with me. And then there came a point where a German bank, a smaller bank that I used to work with, they had to cut their training budget drastically. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me, like, okay, so all these guys really love working with me, but perhaps I should start to think about how I can make it a more sustainable business. Because up until then, and it was 2016, up until 2016, I had zero online presence, no LinkedIn profile, no website, no nothing. And that was the point where I launched my LinkedIn, where I started a website and started blogging and writing just whatever came to my mind, in the hope that eventually I will form and develop something, and something will crystallize about what I'm doing and how I'm doing with these guys. And that's how I came up eventually with this concept of the 5-step language coaching program, I call it, and I designed it specifically for finance professionals in London. And if you could go to the next slide, Gabi, what it actually entails, and it's part of my business's core offering. so I used, I wear different hats at different times. So at the very, very beginning, when I start working with a client, I usually wear a coach hat. And that means that I ask, well, I'm sure all of you would start with with an assessment before starting with the client. But in this particular assessment, I ask coaching questions and some coaching tools that will help them realize what it is that actually they want to do. And I ask them specific coaching kind of questions that just add a different quality to the whole assessment as well. Then, of course, training starts. Well, I have my tricks and methods that I like, which of course you do, all of you as well. But then there comes a time when perhaps there is a hurdle, there is a motivational issue. So again, I would wear a coach hat and I would be asking a coaching question, and I will try to solve the problem by guiding the client. And then again, a reflection tool. So whenever we reflect on the learning journey that we have been through, again, I would turn to coaching. So it's this kind of three elements that I'm trying to juggle with. And what I found is that well, the rest is actually teaching and training through natural conversations. And what I found is that it not only accelerated the process, but it made it immensely enjoyable for the clients. And it brought a different quality, as we said. And I just want to show you one slide with a couple of feedbacks from clients. Now, these guys, they, so I never articulated to them that I'm now using the coaching approach on you. It was just, it organically evolved, and I felt that I needed to ask those questions, and I asked those questions. So they never really knew that, okay, this was the concept. These are all old guys that have been with for at least 7 years here. And look, Leslie, for example, is saying she's clearly doing something right because I keep going back for more. True, she's been with me for over 10 years. She's one of the most loyal clients, and she's hooked. It's a she, so Leslie's a lady. She's hooked. She just enjoys it so much as I do working with her. Or another guy, for example, Anthony, who points out in the other corner that understanding of German culture and gave me greater confidence in the language use than I had thought possible. So sometimes I find that they are so humble and that they don't even want to acknowledge how fluent they are. Like, all of these guys are fluent, clearly, after 7 or 8 or 10 years working with a language teacher one-on-one. Of course, they are fluent, but they don't want to say they are fluent. They are really, really humble, and these are the issues that I have to work through with them. Like, it's one of the key problems that I encounter. What is fluency? Anyway, it's a different topic. But then again, if we go to the other side, Gabi, there are so many individual teachers and trainers, and as we can see, language coaches as well on the market. The question is really, how do we differentiate ourselves, and how do we stand out from the crowd? And I feel that using coaching elements in your language teaching can certainly add a different level to your processes and help you create more remarkable services that you can sell to your clients. But I also think that we have to be more specific than that. And what I would like to share with you in the next section is 2 things that worked for me. We can still stay on the, well, actually, yeah, we can go to this slide, true. So 2 things that worked for me, and one of them was identifying my target market. So before 2016, I used to be a language teacher, a German and Hungarian teacher to anyone and everyone who found me, and I was happy with that. But then after I realized that, okay, I need to create some sort of online presence, and I need to put myself out there, that's when I started to really think, okay, who do I want to target? Because if I'm just another language teacher, then, okay, German and Hungarian, it's specific, it makes it sound like you are addressing a niche market, but it's not niche enough. And the more you speak to anyone, the more you speak to no one. And so what I did is that I sat down and I took time to really analyze who I love working with. And I asked myself these three questions. Who do I love working with? Who has the capacity to pay me? And who values my services the most? And once I really took the time to think through these questions, what I found is that at the intersection of this question, there was a very clear and loud answer. And in my case, it was finance professionals. I used to work with lots of different guys, marketing executives, the fashion industry. But what I found is that I loved working with these guys. I love this male-dominated arena, I have to admit, and I love to break down these initial, oh, who are you? You little language teacher, tell me what you know. And I like to break this ice, and I like to show them that, you know what, I'm going to show you what I know, and I'm going to show you what you are capable of, even more than you think. So I really enjoyed working with these guys. Plus, I don't know, I love finance. I learned a lot from my clients, I have to say, but I really enjoy working with them. And also I found that eventually I understand their problems. I understood their struggles, and I mean work problems and work struggles that they have to face on a daily basis. It's a very fast-paced industry. And I like these strong personalities. And so what I did is I started to build a website. It's prolingua.global if you want to have a look, but I will say something else before you go on and check it out. So I started to publish content. I started to create a mailing list where I could engage my clients in a more meaningful way and keep up with them in between lessons as well. I started a podcast channel where I interviewed clients, not only clients of mine, but other people who speak multiple languages and are in business. I went to networking events where these guys hang out. And the point is that rather than just talking to anyone and everyone who wants to learn German or Hungarian, I narrowed my services down to this very specific niche. And also what that brought along is that I packaged my services in a way that really catered to them and their particular wants and needs, which subsequently helped me to increase my prices because I increased the value that I provided. And so I would like to urge you to ask yourself these three questions. Who do you love working with? Who has the capacity to pay you? These guys, I mean, finance professionals, the niche that I chose, they have the money, clearly. I mean, they are one of the most well-paid individuals globally, and of course here in London as well. And they value my services as well. So I think that if you can get laser focused on these three questions and to find the answer, then everything else will suddenly fall into place, because your messages, your marketing messages will start to be in alignment with them. And it's ultimately going to be a lot more relevant to them. The other thing, so if we could go perhaps to the next slide, Gabi, is, so I mentioned that I started to package my services in a different way. And here is what I did, or where I found the inspiration from. So I often find that if we look at other language schools, other language training providers, how they do things, how they sell their services, what their price point is, etc. I think we should be very careful with that, because clearly you need to understand how do I say it? Clearly you want to understand the competitive landscape you are in. You want to know their price points. You want to know who the players are on the market, and how they position themselves, how they market themselves. But don't get too carried away. What I found is that the most inspiration, I found the most inspiration by looking at other industries, actually. So the primary reason you want to analyze your competition is because you want to to know how to stand out from them and how to be different from them. And what in my case, what worked is I learned a lot after I attended lots of different business accelerator programs and seminars. So I checked how they package their services, how they target potential new clients, myself, for example, how they keep me engaged before I'm ready to actually buy and invest into a larger training program with them. And I brought this inspiration back into creating service packages that I sell now. And so I would like to recommend you to look around and keep an open mind, because this is what's going to bring perhaps a more innovative edge to your business. So perhaps if there is a super successful, I don't know, health practitioner that you know, or a very successful yoga instructor, for example, or a personal trainer. So other service industries, look at them and have and check what they do, because there is so much inspiration that you can take away from them that it's mind-blowing. But also at the same time, I would like to remind you, or at least that's what I found to be also important, that you also have to cherish. So but in the search of this uniqueness or of this difference about you, don't forget to cherish your own inner voice and strengthen it. Strengthen your unique perspective that also has to come out. And don't be afraid to show who you are as a teacher or as a trainer, because I find that if you really stand up for what you do, ultimately the market will resonate to it, and the right people will show up. It may take time, I know, but I think that's probably one of the things that worked for me. And so my message is, be clear on your target markets, and look at other industries for inspiration and a bit of innovation, perhaps. And let's spice up this language training market together. Marketing. If you could go to the next slide, Gabi. I don't know about you. Please share your ideas. I'm really curious what you think about marketing yourself as a language teacher. Because what I find is that many of us are a bit hesitant when it comes to standing out there and showing up and marketing ourselves and our services, because we may feel that, oh, I don't want to brag, or I don't want to be pushy, or I don't want to be in front of their eyes all the time. Well, if you reframe this, and if you look at this quote by Marie Forleo, she's an American lady, if you reframe this whole idea of marketing is bragging or it's not good, well, if you don't show up, you steal from those who need you the most. You steal from those who resonate to your unique perspective of teaching and training and coaching. So I would like to urge you to go out there. Let's shake up this bland market that is full of sameys, and let's stand out, and let's make a difference here, because we are all in the language training industry. We are all language teachers, trainers, and coaches. But I really feel that by no means should we look at each other as competitors, because even if we teach the same language, even if we are based in the same city, even if we use coaching tools and the coaching method in our language teaching, we all have our unique perspective, and clients or prospective clients will automatically resonate to those who they feel is the best fit. And there is nothing wrong with that. I think we should really cherish this this multifaceted industry of ours, which is a very, very beautiful industry actually to be in. So in my view, we are all in the same boat, and that's what I would like to finish my bit with. we are all in the same boat. What we do is we promote understanding between individuals, between people, businesses, and even between cultures and countries. And that's something we should be very proud of. And I think that needs to be heard by more and more people. We are here to make the world a more connected place, I guess. That sounds like a Facebook slogan, but I think that's what I would like to to finish my talk with. And I hope it was there were some insights for you. And finally, I would like to give you a bit of homework. So we will send out an email with Gabriella Kovács that will contain some of the key elements that we mentioned today, both she and I. And I'm also going to include an exercise for you there that will hopefully perhaps help you to approach your marketing in a more strategic and more intelligent way. And if you allow us, and you, Gabi, go to the next slide, we would like to introduce to you a brand new webinar that is a series of webinars actually that is going to be a follow-up to this particular one. I am going to be talking on the 10th of October in the evening time. Gabi will do her bit on the 3rd of October. And I'm going to, so my goal is to give you a bit more tips. If you are struggling to find your target niche and you feel you are not specific enough, then I would like to help you with that. Then I also want to help with positioning yourself and marketing yourself, both online and offline. I'm just going to share a couple of ideas that worked for me. So by no means do I want to, again, position myself as a marketing expert or anything as such, but I feel that there are a couple of things that I could share, and then I'm sure it would benefit the community. Sharing content online, where to share content, where not to share. Don't bother about Facebook if your audience is business professionals. They don't hang out on Facebook. So there is, even though other language schools may advertise on Facebook, you don't need to. So there are these little things that perhaps if you consider, it just makes more sense and takes the hassle out of your marketing as well, and makes things simple. Also, I want to share with you how I built a list of prospects and how I stay in touch with them, even though they are not taking advantage of my services and are not paying for my services just yet. But I keep them engaged, and until eventually, potentially, they are warmed up and ready to buy. If not, that's equally fine, and I'm happy to just help them, keep them engaged and informed about language teaching or learning more specifically. And so I want to share simple, no-nonsense strategies that worked for me. So if it's of interest, then we would love to see you there. Gabriella, your turn. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, I'll just unmute myself. Thank you very much for all that, Gabi. I'd just say 1 or 2 sentences about what I'd be doing. Of course, I'd be looking at the professional side, and I'd be addressing business trainers, business coaches, or language teachers who are working with people in the corporate world, focusing on their business needs, their business language needs. Basically, if you want to be able to represent your professional self in a more confident way, using a coaching approach in what you're going to be marketing, obviously, have a very sound foundation professionally for what you're doing. Also, we'd be widening the spectrum. We'd be working with specific tools that you can take away. I mentioned that. It's very practical what I do, so it's not all theory, and you can't really do much with that. It's very difficult to apply theory when you actually go into the classroom or go into the training room and okay, yeah, I've got all this in my head, but how can I actually apply it? What can I actually do? So you're going to be taking away loads and loads of stuff that you could just, okay, photocopy it or just start working with the idea. I think what is also important that you will be much more aware of your coaching practices as a professional. So maybe unconsciously you've been doing quite a lot of things. And I get that feedback from people who attend my trainings that, oh, I've learned a lot of things which are new, but I also have learned that what I've been doing is also kind of coaching, but I'm more aware of it now, and now I know how exactly and when and with whom and in what situation to apply it and to use it in a much more structured way with a specific framework. So that always helps. And I think in the corporate environment, coaching works very well. Many people, many of your clients have been coached. That's always something that I ask from the people that I work with. And I would say 70–80% of them have been coached, so they know what the process is like, and they are familiar with it and they are happy with it. So it's always a benefit. It's a value-added thing. So basically, I would be providing lots and lots of practical things that you can take with you, and you can boost what you were doing with. And Gabi will be helping you with marketing. So I think it's a very good duo. Okay, so basically that's it. And what do we have time for? I know we're running a little bit over time, but what is it that we would still like to say, Gabi?
I believe it's time to Q&A. So if any of you have any questions, guys, then
now I'll open the chat box. I just didn't want it to distract, but yeah, we've got lots and lots of things here going on. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, okay, so we're coming here.
I can't see. I did follow the chat box occasionally, and I haven't seen any questions just yet. Okay. So guys, if there is anything you would like to ask us, then this is the time it would be.
Okay, so what we see here is that the landscape is very similar in Argentina. Also somebody from Hungary, Andrea, saying that the services are on all the sites. What we also have is very little on specific needs. Great advice. Yeah, the right people will find you. Okay. Those webinars are useful.
Perhaps, Gabriella, until we see some questions, if there are any, perhaps if you can go to the next slide and talk about ILCA, and I'm going to talk briefly about...
Okay. Yeah, I can say 2 or 3 words while we are waiting for... So this is the Language Coaching Association I've been talking, I mentioned briefly at the beginning of the introduction. It's an association which has recently been launched, so much so that the website is still a little bit under construction, so still got some things going on there, but lots of information and lots of opportunity to be connecting with each other, which I think is one of the key issues here. And it's basically, it's like a missionary, you know, so it's just a mission. It's based on a passion for language coaching, which I share with the co-founder, and it's going to be something which I think we'll start developing very slowly or very rapidly. That part I don't know, but it's going to develop definitely. For one thing, there, as Gabi mentioned, there are just so many language coaches out there, and same as for there are so many teacher associations, there have to be language coach associations also, right? So yeah, so that's mine. And check out the website, and then I'd love to answer any questions that we have. Gabi, yours? Yeah. Okay.
Just unmuting myself.
Okay.
So well, this is another event that I would like to recommend you if you want to join us at any time. Language Professionals Networking event. It's something that I host and organize regularly. It's a monthly social initiative in central London. We usually meet on a Thursday, towards the last Thursday each month, but it's not always the same. It's in central London. It's a lovely community of all sorts of language professionals. So if you are in London, or if you are ever coming this way, then go and have a look. It's not only these social gatherings that we do now, but also we started to organize exclusive trainings and workshops, and I would like to point out one of them, a business growth workshop specifically designed for language professionals. It's something that Natalie Dannon is hosting and organizing. The next one is coming. It's a series of workshops. Next one is coming up I think on the 3rd of November. So have a look on this website. There is also a language, a business conference specifically for language professionals coming up, again organized by Natalie Dannon. We write all about it and report about it on this website, languageprofessionalsnetworking.com. So I think it may be beneficial for all of you wherever you are in the world to visit at times and have a look there. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say here. And questions?
Yeah, I think the question, one of the questions here, face-to-face or online sessions, it could be directed to either of us actually. I think we do both, don't we? Gobi, I do both, yeah. And you also, right?
I do both as well. I'm sure you would agree with me that, but I personally prefer personal, face-to-face.
Me too.
But to keep the regularity, and when the client has to travel, then we simply just use Zoom, and it works really.
Zoom works well. Yeah, me too. If there are any questions that you have about I don't know, the content, the professional side, or anything that you would like to ask Gabriella Ferenczi, we're happy to answer. It was, maybe we've still got 1 or 2 minutes. I'm just looking, if so I'm just waiting here. Yeah, we've got this, yes, lots of food for thought. Thank you for that, very inspiring. Okay, wonderful. Any comment that you'd like to give us? We're very happy to receive any kind of feedback about today, about any ideas that came to your mind as you were listening to us, and I think we would appreciate that. Okay, on the same page. Okay.
I love this question, Jackie.
Yeah, would you like?
I keep interest after having them for such a long time. Well, I keep interest by asking them what they are interested in. So it's really they taking the lesson wherever they are, and whatever feels relevant to them at that particular time. To be honest, it's also important for me to keep the lesson interesting. I hate doing the same thing over and over again, because I feel that if I'm bored, then they are definitely bored, and that's the last thing we want to do.
Right.
So mostly I just bring, different topics, but current happenings in the world, and that's how I try. Well, and it works well. I don't know about you. I think it depends on the level as well, because if there is good progress, and after working with someone for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, they are fluent. So we just talk about anything and everything that comes up and is relevant to them somehow. So I think it's relatively easy, but it might not be. I don't know if I answered your question.
I guess so, yeah. I think the key word was being relevant. So always staying relevant, and that's such an important word here at the end. Maybe that's something that we could slowly close with. That and you're assessing, reassessing. That's also very true. You're constantly contracting with the client, basically, because you're redesigning where you're heading. So it's like, you're driving on a road, but you're always going to take turns, and you're always going to, I think we should be going this way or that way. And because both of you are in the car, both of you can actually give directions and support each other in where you actually want to go. So that's kind of, so it's a journey that both of you are taking in a way. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is, so I've got the PDF assembled after today's webinar. So with the key takeaways from here, from the slides, as well as the exercises that we mentioned. And I'm going to email it to all of you. So if you allow me, probably I will have to have a look on Eventbrite if I can attach a PDF to these emails that we sent out, you know, with the links, with the Zoom link. I'm going to have a look if it's possible to send a PDF attachment there. If not, then I might need to export your email address, if you allow me, into MailChimp, which is another email client that I'm using. And through that, you can certainly receive those emails, or I'll just simply email it one-on-one to you from my personal email address. It's not an issue. But certainly we would like to send that PDF out to you. And also the links to the webinar. If you're interested in joining us another time, we would love to have you and dig a little bit deeper together and see what else we can come up with. So shall we say thank you, Gabriella?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I'm just typing here. Thank you very much for everyone's enthusiasm and time. I know it's a weekday, and it's usually a very busy schedule to, you know, fit this kind of thing in. But I think it's been a very eventful, you know, thought-provoking and inspiring evening. So thank you very much for everyone for joining. Yeah, absolutely. I had a great time.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much indeed. And hopefully see you online or in person.
So thank you very much for your patience. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
I'll be stopping. Yeah.